Lighting is a mysterious and powerful beast, one which contextualizes all forms of life that we know and enjoy on this planet. Hi, Taras Pleskin here at the Top Shelf Aquatics Farm. Now, one of the most immediate, jarring, and immediate things that any newcomer to the reef aquarium industry realizes when they walk into, well, let's say the average LFS store or even a wonderful facility such as our coral farm here is, look at all this blue light. I've never seen anything quite like it. Saturating blue light descending from all these fixtures, illuminating in a way that almost makes our little humble farm here come off as something of an alien fun laboratory. Lighting is perhaps the most important aspect of reef aquarium keeping. It is one which contextualizes all forms of life, down from the single cellular cyanobacteria, microalgae cell, moving up towards larger forms of life, holobiont complexes such as the corals that we see, and even the fish and invertebrates that crawl in amongst the wonderful nooks and crannies of these beautiful illuminated worlds that we construct here in these glass tanks. Lighting is an incredibly confusing, confounding, and contradictory subject. It is one which completely confounds and vexes the minds of even the most brilliant physicists, yet here in the reef aquarium industry, we do not have the luxury of ignoring lighting. We certainly don't have the luxury of undervaluing it. The first thing that might be a jarring transition from someone keeping plants and then even being in the freshwater industry towards their first purchase of a reef aquarium and trying to keep corals alive is, the cost of these lights is so much. Why can't I just use my $40 6500K fluorescents? Why is that not going to work when I'm trying to grow acropora? Why is that not going to work when I'm trying to have a wonderful fish display? Well, the answer is all wrapped up in the many wonderful and vexing nuances of lighting. How it is displayed, how it is deployed, how it is absorbed, reflected, and utilized by the cells of different organisms. And here at Top Shelf, we consider it something which is extremely worthy of any member and any participant of this industry's attention. Whether or not you're starting your first 5-10 gallon nano reef, or whether or not you are an adept, seasoned aquaculturist working with these species long term, lighting is something which should be in the forefront and the back front of your mind at all times. What light do I want? How do I deploy it? How much of it do I want? And how long do I want that light deployed? These are all these questions that we'll try to be teasing out a little bit of details and discussing in our upcoming series about lighting in the reef aquarium. Today, we're just going to be having a very brief introduction into the general aspects of lighting in the reef aquarium, and in further episodes, we'll take each of these chunks and we'll go into as much detail as my little brain can muster and we have the time to offer. So, firstly, we'll talk about the three main vital aspects of light. And that is first, spectrum. Whether or not, what color is the light? What wavelength is the light? In general, very generally speaking, visible light that you and I see and acknowledge has three main flavors. We have red light, which is mainly used by terrestrial plants and green algae and the like. We have green light, which doesn't really participate too much in directly being used for photosynthesis, but contextualizes the distribution of other lights. Think of that as very good for helping the colors of fish pop when it's reflected off their pigments. And then we have blue light, which is incredibly essential to things like corals and other marine algae and other marine organisms that really require blue light because that's what they have most accessible in their wild environment and what they are most adapted to using. Now, with that in context very briefly, we'll transition from spectrum into appreciating every single cell, whether or not it's a cyanobacteria or if it's a cell on the skin of the Sohal tang you see behind me. Every single cell, whether or not it's photosynthetic, it's either receiving light and acting as a little solar factory, a factory converting that light energy into sugars, starches, fats, all kinds of stuff that can be used and utilized and fed upon by other members of the ecosystem. Even if it's not photosynthetic, that light can also be reflected off that cell, reflected off the pigments off that cell, and that reflects the wonderful color that hits our eyes and that our brains recognize as the wonderful color and beauty that gets us in this hobby anyway. So spectrum is incredibly essential for being able to both target the needs of what we're trying to grow and being able to have the right light hit what we're already growing so that it looks pretty when we see it. The second very important factor of light beyond spectrum is intensity. How many photons are hitting the skin of that sohal? How many photons are hitting every square inch of that acro every second, every minute? What is the intensity of that light radiation that's hitting it? And whether or not that light is the right spectrum or how intense that spectrum is can dictate whether or not, just like fertilizer, whether or not it nourishes that acro, whether or not that light allows it to grow and be happy, or whether or not it's way too much and smothers it, and the acro must spend all kinds of energy blocking itself, making sunscreen to protect itself from the light. Intensity can be incredibly valuable. So we'll go into a lot of detail on how to read intensity. We'll bring out some photometers and we'll try and be doing a little bit of that. And the last is photoperiod. What is the time, the temporal context of the light? How is your day cycle? Is it 16 hours on? Is it 12 hours on, 12 hours off? Are you in a cryptic zone where it's dark 24 hours? Are you doing what I do with my microalgae, 24 hours of light? The photoperiod of light, how that directly translates into the wild, innate genetic programming of every organism for the sun rising and the sun setting, light coming and light going, dictates everything in the aquarium. Not only how well the corals can utilize light and how well they can modify themselves to accept that light for a certain period of the day, but things like photoperiod from day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year, season to season, dictate the growth of fish, dictates the behavior of fish, the social dynamics of fish, and most importantly, the maturation of eggs and spawning behavior of fish as well. And all these things can be directly correlated to the behavior and the coloration and natural display quality of the fish as well. So photoperiod, another vital contextualizing factor. So we'll be talking about these three main aspects of light, and we'll give them all their own little episode in their own little time. We'll also be talking a little bit more about the importance of pigments in various organisms for being able to reflect and use light in the context of all those three aspects before. And then lastly, to the best of our ability, because we are a commercial facility and we do like to recommend what we do use and what has success with us, we'll be discussing general different types of lighting, metal halides, fluorescence, LEDs, the sun, all these different ways that lighting can be accessible to the aquarist, the different spectrums, costs, benefits, drawbacks, limitations, and superfluences that are all demonstrated within those different lighting fixtures and different mechanisms of deploying light. So, in conclusion, this is just a very, very brief, summarized introduction to our ongoing series that we at Top Shelf are very excited to introduce to the reef aquarium public on light. Light, where it comes from, how organisms receive it, how they use it, and how the aquarist can utilize it, deploy it, and purposefully understand it to not only keep their organisms happy and healthy, but make them visually stunning, beautiful, and then to transcend both those things, have them intersect towards understanding of how light and life are connected together. And at the end of the day, isn't that pursuit of understanding through beauty what this wonderful aquarium industry is about after all? So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next time. We'll be talking specifically about the spectrum of light. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.